The next, guys, okay, so the next speaker is gonna be Merve. She's an ESR of 5G wireless. She's PhD candidate at TUD, TU Dresden, Technical University of Dresden. And today she will be talking about index modulation, which is my preferred topic. So let's see if she cites the project coordinator's work to make him happy. Okay? Okay, let's go.
Yeah, I will your heart today. Yeah, I will talk about index modulation schemes today. My talk will be, first I will briefly introduce what does index modulation means. Then I will show you two different applications, which are OFDM with index modulation and hybrid beamforming with spatial modulation. Then I will conclude my talk. Okay, what is spatial modulation? Conventionally, the data is modulated into according to classical ML modulation schemes, and to increase the data bits transmitted at a channel use also requires to increase the power at these schemes. But at index modulation scheme, the data bits are mapped onto any kind of medium. It can be subcarriers or antennas or antenna arrays, and doesn't require additional power, and it is best to use with classical ML modulated schemes. I will go more into details with OFDM with index modulation. If you consider here the blocks are the subcarriers available at an OFDM system, and let's say there are n available subcarriers. At classical OFDM system, all of them would be active and would carry constellation signals. But at OFDM with index modulation, according to incoming bits, only k out of n subcarriers will be chosen active, and as a result, log2 and choose k bits are transmitted from index modulation part, and k log2 and bits will be transmitted by the classical ML modulation systems. At my work, I assume that receiver has perfect CSI, and I use QAM modulation, and I also consider the channel as frequency selective Rayleigh fading channel. Here we are looking into transmitter block diagram of the system for multiple transmit antennas. If we only focus on the first line, which is for only one transmit antenna, we see that there are two different bits. One is going to index selection block, the other one is going to ML modulation block. At index selection block, the active subcarriers will be chosen, and at OFDM IAM block creator, the OFDM IAM signal will be created. And after this point, it's same with classical OFDM systems. And if we look into the receiver structure, again, until the decoding block, everything is same with classical OFDM system. The only difference at decoding part is that receiver should decode both the active subcarriers and ML modulated data at the same time. And for my work, I have chosen zero forcing decoding because it's linearity and low complexity. It's also compromised from the error performance when we compare with non-linear detection methods, but it is possible to improve further the performance with employing successive interference cancellation. This is an application for OFDM with index modulation. We are looking the system for uplink scenario. Equation 1 is the received signal at base station for only one subcarrier. And here H is the channel matrix, X is the symbol, and W is the noise. Since we are using index modulation and not all the subcarriers are active, it is possible that X will be 0 here. And receiver use zero forcing filtering to detect active subcarriers and MRI modulated data. Here I would like to show you the bit error rate performance of the system. I compared classical OFDM system with OFDM with index modulation. At this figure, the total transmit power and the transmitted bits per channel use is same for both of the systems. Blue lines are for classical OFDM and purple lines are together with index modulation. We see that when we use the index modulation scheme, we can have a better error performance while we are consuming same power and transmitting same number of bits. And the difference between dashed line and the straight line is usage of successive interference cancellation. We can further improve the performance by employing that. So I conclude with OFDM index modulation. And now I will tell you what is hybrid beamforming with special modulation. In this case, index modulation is done on special domain, and it has a specific name which is called spatial modulation. For my work, I choose the spatial modulation medium as the antenna array indices. And as a result, log 2 NA. NA is the number of antenna arrays at the system, at the transmitter, plus log 2 M bits are transmitted at the channel use. I have considered that transmitter uses both digital precoder and analog beamformer, and receiver performs the digital combiner. And both the transmitter and receiver has perfect CSI. Since beamforming schemes are more logical to use at large-scale systems, also at millimeter wave, I considered geometry-based channel model. It is more realistic for that kind of systems. Here we are looking at the system model of hybrid beamforming with spatial modulation. There are NA antenna arrays are available at the transmitter, and each has anti-transmit antennas. There is no restriction from antenna array point of view. One data stream can more than one data stream can be used to transmit data from one antenna array. So there is no limitation in that sense, but there is a limitation that number of data streams should be less than or equal to number of RF chains. And the receiver side is the receiver block diagram of one user. Here, since digital combining is used, the number of RF chains are equal to number of receive antennas. And maximum likelihood detection is used to jointly decode the spatial modulated and ML modulated symbols. Here again, I work on the performance of the system for multi-user scenario, this time downlink. Here R is the received symbol at one user. H is the channel matrix from antenna array to that user. F and P are the analog beamformer and digital precoders. X is the symbol and N is the noise. An ML detector is used to decode data. For this case, I would like to show you two different figures to show the performance of the system. Here we are looking at a two-user network for downlink scenario, and this is the performance of one user. The difference between blue lines and the purple lines are the difference of codebook which is used for analog beamformer. For blue line, I have chosen the analog beamformer among a beam steering column, and we see that there is an error floor. And for purple line, I have chosen the analog beamformer vector among the transmit antenna array responses. And if you would like, you can see at reference 2, it is stated that for large scale systems, at geometry-based channel model, it is indeed that transmit and receive antenna array responses are the singular vectors of the channel, and the dominant path would be the optimal beamformer for that case. And we can see that the performance for purple one is much better, and there is no error floor. And another thing to comment on this figure is that when we use beamforming, when the number of transmit antennas are higher, we can have a better performance, since we can direct the beam more successfully to the intended user. We see the effect here. The start ones are for 46 transmit antennas, and straight lines are for the 8 transmit antennas. And here I wanted to compare hybrid beamforming with spatial modulation with a classical spatial modulation system which is designed for multi-user systems. The case I have compared also has large number of transmit antennas, but here there is no analog beamformer is used, only precoding is used to transmit data, and the transmit antennas are divided subgroups, and for each data stream the spatial modulation is done among the transmit antennas at that subgroup. We can see that by employing hybrid beamforming, we can have a much better performance for spatial modulation case. And this concludes my talk. I just want to comment on a few advantages of both of the systems. For OFDM-IM, it is possible to have achieve better spectral efficiency by playing with the number of active subcarriers, and it also provides a more flexible system design. And I have shown that OFDM-IM has better error performance than classical OFDM. And also the peak-to-average power ratio of OFDM-IM is better than classical OFDM system. And for hybrid beamforming with spatial modulation, spectral efficiency can be improved by employing more antenna arrays. And when we compare with fully connected systems, hybrid beamforming systems have lower power consumption. And I have shown that hybrid beamforming spatial modulation has better error performance than classical spatial modulation.
Maro, what is slide 13? Was it 12 or 13?
References.
The references. Okay. Then
I got the citation. Okay. No, I'm happy. Okay.
okay, but then I wouldn't put them into the one thing you present. So I think this, well, in general, the references as discussed earlier are kind of distracting, because during your presentation there is C1, C2, at certain point, slide 3, I think there was one between square brackets, and you don't explain what it is, and still at the end you don't know because you showed us only at the end. I would put, instead of one, if you really need to cite that paper, I would put like Bashar et al. 2013, something like that. So those who know those papers know that Bashar published a transactional signal processing paper, and those who don't, I mean, if you just see number 1, you say, okay, there must be a reference, but I don't know what it is. because they don't get to see this.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wouldn't put, in general I would avoid references, but if you really want to put them like that, with Harvard style or so. Don't put like this, especially at the end. I mean, this works well if this is like the final presentation for your dissertation, then you have maybe a long list of references. But if you don't show it, then it's pointless to cite them beforehand. Also, I think the number of slides is good enough because it's 13, but I think there is something odd because maybe I got lost, but between slide 4 and 5, were there 2 slides number 4 or so? I missed something. Between 4 and 5,
these are not counted.
Yeah, okay,
Slides.
but that's, I'm fine with that, but slide number 4, can you go back to slide number 4? I think there are,
Yeah.
there are 2.
Yes, they are 2.
Okay.
1 and 2.
Okay, so you're kind of cheating with the numbers. Okay, that's okay, but still, slide number 4, there is the previous slide number 4, not this one, is very, I mean, the list of symbols is entirely pointless because you never discuss them.
Yeah.
It's too small and you don't discuss them ever in the presentation. I mean, the fact, well, the only 2 numbers that are relevant in this entire long list of symbols are N and K. The number of available versus active subcarriers, because you mentioned this at the end, but you should stress it more, that K is one and N is the other. You should say this from the very beginning, because then when you see in the last slide, the advantage of my proposal is that it is 10 log K instead of 10 log N. I totally forgot what N and K were for. So you should, and that's the only 2 symbols you need for. The rest is totally pointless. I mean, textbook-wise, is kind of understandable. I do not want to see, okay, I have this many bits, this passes by, this many messages, but you don't discuss this. So I wouldn't even put the numbers onto all the letters, on top of the arrows. You don't need them. What does matter is that you do in the selection, then FDM, and so on. And I also miss, why do you need to reply this many times? Wouldn't a chain be enough? Just one single chain. Why do you need to, I know you will reply this for this many branches, but just for description of the chain, do you need to have this many chains? They are all the same, right?
Yeah, this is for, because there is more than 1 transmit antennas. Each one
Yes.
for 1 transmit antenna chain.
Yes, and can't you say just one chain with big squares, which are maybe better readable, and you say that this is for any transmit antenna? Wouldn't it be better?
Yeah.
I think that would be, because the main problem with this slide is that it's definitely too small. You see there are a lot of symbols and a lot of blocks, and so it's very difficult to follow what's a real important aspect. Actually, after you manage to attend the entire presentation, you see the important aspects are N and K, and that the chain is, well, one single chain is enough, probably, to me. Also, the figures instead, well, you might have realized the lines are too thin.
Yeah.
You must use thicker lines. Also, the colors are not maybe, I mean, I understand it is very, I mean, for some reason, my female students also like to have not primary colors, and they are this fancy, but the colors are too similar. Especially, maybe it's a projector, but blue and purple are not so easy to distinguish then.
Okay.
So, on the other hand, well, this is the figure, the third figure. So, I wouldn't use the caption. Instead of using the caption, I would say that in the title. Because the thing is, numerical results, well, this is obvious, it's a numerical result. What the numerical results about is a comparison between CM and HBFSM. So, why don't you put the title comparison of SM and HBFSM, and then the fact is 2 user and NR is equal to 1. Well, this you can put there, because also the key is too small. Because it's very difficult to see the difference between the blue and purple is what? The BS versus CP, which is, I don't know what it means. So you should put it bigger there. And maybe in the figure you put on the paper, in the presentation, I understand this is good for the paper, but in the conference, you don't need to tell everybody what is alike. Like blue curve is HBFSM, for n number of antennas is equal to 4, number of transmit antennas is equal to 8, and okay, this is the same for the purple curve as well. So just put the blue curve is for BS and the purple curve is for CP. That would be, I know that would be partial, not the full story,
No,
but
the reason I have all these here is that there's a difference between spatial modulation. There's only 4 transmit antennas, and for the other one, 4 antenna arrays with 8 transmit antennas. But here I didn't put all these things.
yes, I see, but this
I
is,
wanted to make the difference.
yeah, I understand, but this is too, there are some distracting parts. I mean, you should, well, first and foremost, it should be bigger, that's for sure. Because it's too small and you get like this to see every tiny detail, and it takes a while to understand what's different between the two curves. And second, it should be better highlighted what is the difference, because the parallel is the same, you don't mention, the parallel is different, you better mention. That's my take at least. And something else? Yeah, in slide 5, you take some time to explain what zero forcing, which is something that probably you can skip instead, especially if, no, in slide 5. In slide 5 you say that zero forcing means this is detected, well, this is kind of, I mean, standard, I guess. It's not part of the contribution here. So it's something that you explain for the sake of completeness, but you can skip. I mean, you can make it shorter. Also because you need to explain that yn is equal to this is very standard, at least to me. And you need also this very tiny text, which is difficult to read. I mean, the contribution there is very, I mean, for those who don't know a thing about MIMO, they won't understand either, because they don't take the time to read this. And those who know MIMO, they say, okay, but this is standard, as usual, sum of all antennas, of the gain, and that's it. So you can skip maybe this, even, or make it very short, anyways. And I think that's it. Yeah, another comment was that in slide 7, there are some assumptions about, too many assumptions here. The general structure is like this. For example, yeah, the perfect CSI and the receiver detects both antenna arrays and MRA symbol. But though this is, I mean, of course you mentioned that for the sake of completeness, but is there any other way you can do that? Probably not. I mean, this is standard baseline assumption. So I would, all of these assumptions are kind of standard.
But these two are not assumptions. This is my system.
Yeah, that's what I want. You should just mention them.
Okay.
Instead of the rest that is standard. And especially the channel model, more realistic for millimeter wave, is never mentioned before. So you should, I mean, why do you need to have a more realistic model for millimeter wave? Because your massive MIMO system goes better for millimeter wave, but it's never said. So it comes out of the blue. Millimeter waves come out of the blue at this point. So you better mention this.
Didn't I say that?
No.
Okay.
No, you didn't. So you better mention this in the motivation at the beginning. Okay? And that's it. That's all my comments.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Go ahead.
Just
Then it's my turn. Go ahead.
No, this is someone. What kind of geometry-based channel model have you used? You remember?
From this.
It's a standard?
Yeah, standards. Hayami. Yeah, I forgot. It is the standard classical geometry base. I can write if you want. The summation over the channel path for channel gain times antenna response time, receive antenna response time, transmit antenna response.
Okay. Thanks.
Go ahead.
In slide number 5, the zero forcing detector, you consider millimeter wave channel model
For this one, no.
for this one?
For FTMIM, no. For hybrid beamforming, it's spatial modulation. For this one, it's frequency selective radial fading.
And you consider a zero forcing detector with the millimeter wave channel model or no?
No, for millimeter channel model, maximum likelihood detection.
Question, comments?
What about the complexity of index modulation? Can it work with a massive MIMO system when you have a lot of uncertainty?
Yeah, that is why I worked on this hybrid beamforming scheme, that you don't choose among transmit antennas, you choose among antenna arrays. You can increase the number of transmit antennas as much as you want. Only complexities come from, for spatial modulation, comes from number of antenna arrays. So you can have only 4 antenna arrays and, I don't know, 128 antennas each one. So you will have a large scale system, but only choose spatial modulation symbol from 4 antenna arrays.
This means that it independent of number of antenna per
Yeah.
Can you go to slide number 9? I think it's a typo because this one should not L be, I mean, it should not norm, right? It's only absolute value, right? I mean, the equation 4.
Yes. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are not.
No, not
vectors.
norm.
Yeah. Absolutely. You're right.
Comments, questions? No? Yeah, I have a, so from my point of view, from the presentation point of view, I mean not the technical part, I think that you try to present 2 things in one presentation. And this sometimes is a little bit difficult because you change really a lot the signal. For example, if you understood the comment that they asked, for example, what you asked is, did you use this channel model for this part, did you use this channel model for this other part? So essentially people, it's very difficult for people to catch, you know, the assumptions in one system model or another system model. Or you really need, you know, to take your time, make a pause, to say, now here I'm changing, I want to show you 2 different things with 2 different contributions. That's I mean, will make things a little bit clear, more clear. Like this, it was really difficult, I mean, you know, to catch. I agree also with the comment that these millimeter wave channels at a given point appears, but I mean, it was not really clear if your contribution is for millimeter wave or it was not, I mean, for millimeter wave. Because I mean, if you really want to go for millimeter wave, there are so many questions that people could ask. For example, millimeter wave, you have a multiple receive antennas. Then I mean you use only one, you know, at the U receiver, but it's really difficult that you would be able to have multiple RF chains at the receiver, especially because most probably this technique is going to be used at the transmitter side for the downlink, because you use pre-coding and so you use beamforming, and so this is usually, I mean, FDM you use it in downlink, right? So you want to have.
But for this one, there is no FDM.
No, I'm. So what I'm trying to say is, if you wanna put your system model for millimeter wave, then you need somehow, you know, justify the fact that you are using it for millimeter wave. I can tell you because we wrote a couple of papers on millimeter wave in this kind of area, and we said at the receiver we are gonna use many receiver antennas, and everybody started complaining with us. They say you cannot say that you wanna simplify the transmitter by using the fewer radio frequency chains rather than transmit antennas, and then you use 8 receive antennas at the receiver because you want to make your performance better. So I found a little bit the 2 topics make things a little bit difficult to understand, and just I mean try to present one thing with the details and try to see, you know, the state of the art, because this makes things much more clear in my view.
It also makes my life harder.
Yeah, I understand. But I mean, you should be able to. No, but it's the way you present. Another thing is, I mean, you should use more block diagrams and try to use the block diagrams. I mean, even though you put the block diagrams there, try, you know, to use it, to exploit the block diagram to describe your system model. Because in the end, nobody cares, you know, if there is NR times 1, NR times NRT, but at least that you explain that, you know, this is a vector in the input, vector in the output, to describe a little bit. I didn't see, for example, a figure showing the OFDM signals, where you show the comparison between OFDM, all the carriers are on, and index modulation, where some of the carriers are off, that you can gain in the peak average to power ratio. So if people work in this area, they find it trivial, but how many of you are working on spatial modulation or index modulation? One guy. So you know what I'm saying. So it makes things a little bit complicated to understand. That's the only thing. And another comment from the technical point of view, I agree a little bit with the comment from Trin. I mean, so you said that you told us a part of the story, which is the better performance gain that you can get with transmit beamforming. And if you look at the figure, actually, if I look at that figure, there is 20 dB gain in the in the SNR, which is huge, which is really huge. So you should a little bit try to justify this kind of gains, because 20 dB gains is like, I mean, if you get 3 dB gains, we are happy, so we can publish the papers. 20 dB gain is, I mean, if I have a technology that gives me 20 dB gains, I want to write the best patent in my life. So you need to justify it a bit, because the complexity between those two techniques are totally different. So if you go to the slide, I don't remember what the slide, SM, the one that there's a couple of slides. This one. Look at here between SM and the purple line. I mean, if you look at 10 to the power of minus 2, because this is encoded the bit error probability, this is like, 20 dB. It's kind of crazy. I agree, I understand, because you get this gain, but maybe you should try to do, what kind of complexity do you have in terms of using this HBFSM compared to SM?
For that, I should go into designing of precoder and beamformers, and I didn't want to go in this presentation because I present two different subjects.
That's the point. But if you present one, if you explain exactly what your assumptions are, I'm not saying this because, I mean, if people are working on that, understand. But you need to understand something, that when people listen to your presentation, they want to realize if they can believe in what you say or not. If you just go there and they show you that you have 20 dB gains, it's okay, this is not the case. I mean, I will never believe this kind of thing. And then if you go there and you justify why you get this gain, and you say, look, I have 20 dB gains, but there is a reason behind that, you will make your results more believable to people. There's also a way, I mean, that people then trust researchers or not. Because, for example, SM, you have NT equal to 4, but you have only, first of all, SM is open loop. Open loop, so you don't have channel state information on the transmitter, you have only one active radio frequency chain, and the other end, if I understand it, the other lines, you have 4 radio frequency chains that are active or not. And A is equal to NRF?
Yeah, but for one data stream, one RF chain. In that sense, the spatial modulation and HBFM SM are same.
Yeah, but you are transmitting 4 streams in the other cases. How many streams do you transmit?
No, in this case, on both of them, I transmit.
So do you transmit in both cases a 4 QAM or not?
4 QAM, yes.
So the data rate is
and
different?
And I transmit, two data streams.
So the data rate
two data streams, and for spatial modulation, there are total 8 transmit antennas. 4 transmit antenna group is dedicated for that data stream. Yeah, I realize now.
Do they have the same rate or not?
They have same rate.
But here you transmit only a QAM signal?
Yeah, but
a 4 QAM signal?
But do you remember the paper I cited?
Remember the paper I cited? Do you know what? Do you remember the paper I cited? No, okay, today we are joking, okay? Come on, go ahead. Do you remember the paper that I cited?
For each data stream, 4 transmit antenna is used. And one of them is active. And for hybrid beamforming case, 4 antenna arrays are available. One of them is active. So at both cases, only one RF chain is active, and 2 bits from spatial modulation, 2 bits from QAM.
Okay.
So total transmit power and total bits transmitted are same for both systems.
Okay, so in one case you encode into the modulation scheme, and in the other case you encode into the antenna beamformer.
Yeah, at one case I encode to antenna arrays, at other one to transmit antennas.
Okay. I mean, if you could explain this at the, a table of complexity or a figure where actually you show the complexity between the two, maybe people can understand. And also if you could explain why you have the error floor in the blue line, because some people may guess, what are the simulations wrong? I mean, because you have an error floor, your receiver is mismatched or whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a little bit.
Yeah.
Focus on one thing, one message that you want to bring, one concept, and you spend 15 minutes on them, on that topic. It makes things much easier.
Yeah, I know. I just didn't want to go into for both of the systems because it's possible that I write.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just sharing, just sharing some. And then I understand on the titles, as Leonardo was saying. So numerical results 2, etc. For me, it's just SM versus HBFSM, and you make it clear what you are doing, So also the title, for example, I like a lot having the title with a question. For me, the title is a question, so the people understand exactly the message that you want to convey. People like it, people don't like it, it depends, but okay. So that's a little bit my, my comments. Other comments? No? There is a special issue on index modulation. Deadline is 30th of August, IEEE access. Organizers are Strugul Bashar, myself, Harald Das, and 3 or 4 Chinese people who are good friends of us. So we expect a contribution from you.
I can do that.
End of August.
Okay.
It's directly on index modulation, so there will be some embedded papers and some technical contributions. So discuss a little bit with Edward and see if you can make it.
But deadline is
End of August.
Deadline is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's
That's infinity. That's infinity.
right now.
That's infinity. That's really
Correct.
an infinite horizon. I
Infinite
mean,
horizon.
yeah. There is no coherence time. Don't worry about pilots. No worry. Okay. So thank you very much. Next.